right, so we're going to build on what we did yesterday, which was doing the fetch requests, the get requests. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about other kinds of requests, post, patch, and delete specifically. So these are the four methods that you're going to be using most of the time here. Basically, they map to, there's four kind of core data manipulation verbs. There's creating data, there's reading data, there's updating data, and there's deleting data. And the four methods map onto those pretty well. We read data with a get, we create data with a post, we update data with a patch, and we delete data with a delete. So these are the four things that you're going to be using pretty much constantly all the time, both here and in the world. So what are the differences here? So we can do a get request from a browser, easy, just put it in the location bar. To do a post or post-like request, patch or delete, we're going to need to do it in a different way because we can't do it directly just manually from a browser. So if we have Postman or Insomnia or something, we can send requests that way. We can also do it with JavaScript. We can also do it from a form on a page. And that's what we saw the other day when we had a form and we hit return and it reloaded or refreshed. That's doing a post. And we're going to be using the same kind of JSON server to handle those requests because it can handle all four of those. And this setup where we're mapping these four operations onto HTTP methods is called REST, RESTful. It's an acronym that means something that's people might ask you, and it's super not important. It's just a way that we arrange things. So let's just start playing with it. I don't think we need to talk about too much of the conceptual stuff. So let's jump into, let's create some data in our thing. I'm just going to use what we were working with before. So let me share my screen. I always have to like search for it. It's the big green button right in the middle. Great. There's our people. There's our chat. And there's the controls. Fantastic. So what do we got here? We've got our HTML page that we had before with all of our header. These are my users. And we got a list that we put the users in. So when we, great. When we looked at stuff, I have, where is it? Localhost 3000. Where is, that's 3001. That's what I'm looking at. Nope, that's not what I want. Let me try this again here. Pop open a light server. No, of course it opens it over here. Bleep. There we go. Come on. Great. So over here in this other window, this is where our JSON server is running. We can make a request. I think it's still users at the end. Yeah, we didn't change the dinosaurs or whatever. So this is the data the server currently has. We can see in our data JSON file. So we're serving up our users resource and we're getting all this data back here. Great, fantastic. And we have a way to get our users from a get here in our so we have our HTML page with our users div there, and we're saying, hey, we're going to keep an array to hold all of our data in. I'm going to do a fetch here, and that fetch is going to go to our URL for our resource, and we're just going to get them all and put them on the page. Yeah, so we're getting it. We are turning the response into an object that we can use. We're putting it in our data structure here, and then we're rendering it into the page. We're clearing out that div, and we're for eaching through it and doing our create element, set the text content, and append it. Boom. So we should be pretty good with this, at least conceptually right now. let's talk about what it takes to add a new user. So, like I said, we need to do a post, and we need to, if we're going to do it from our HTML page, we're going to do it from a form, probably. It's a common way to do it. There's plenty of ways to do it, but we're going to do it this way first. So let's look at what a form looks like again. I'm going to make it pretty simple. I'll put it above the list here. Take my watch off. Gonna put a form. I'm going to give it an ID because I'm going to need to catch the submit event from it. I'm going to go new. Great. And let's add, let's just add first name and, well, what do we have here? Got first name. Let's just do these three. We don't need to worry about the other stuff right now. In fact, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to get rid of this for now. That's a faster way to do this. I'm just doing it by hand. All we care about is first name, last name, and email. So we don't need the IP address. We need our labels. Great. Cool. So we're just going to create users with, oh, and I need to get rid of all these commas. Thanks, Jason. Harriet, dummy, great, cool. So now we have our users. It should show up the same here. It does. Let me pop up in the console. Great. So back to making our form. We're going to go into our index HTML. Give myself a little bit of room here. A little bit of room here. Cool. So I'm going to need 3 text fields, one for first name, one for last name, and one for email. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to make a label. And that label is going to be first name, colon. And I'll just put the text input here. Why don't we? It's going to be an input. It's going to be type text. And it's going to need a name so we can refer to it. And I'm just going to call it first_name because that matches up with our data. You don't have to, you absolutely 100% do not need to make those names match. I'm just doing it to keep them straight in my brain. I'm going to wrap this in a little div. There are better ways to do this, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Cool. And I'm just going to make 3 of these. Boop, boop. That's with Shift Option down arrow or up arrow. You can duplicate stuff. It's really, really sweet. Email. And it's just email, not email address, right? Here we go. And we're going to need a submit button. So that's also an input type. And we're going to put the value of the what we want to show up on it. Equals create new user. Period. Great. Look at that. There's our pretty little form there. Doesn't do much, doesn't look like much, but we've got our form here. So we can type stuff, do. When we hit the button, it's not going to do anything but reload. So we've done this before. We're going to hook up an event listener to our form, and it's going to listen to the submit event because the form is the thing that's actually throwing that event. So we, hey, look at that. We gave it an ID. Let's go ahead and set that up. Let's set it up right up top. I'm going to document element by ID. It's going to be new user form. I'm just going to attach the event listener right here. We're looking for submit, and I'll call it handle add user, and that's going to be our function. Great. I'm just going to pop these functions closed to unclutter a little bit. Give us a little bit of space to work with. And great. So we have this submit function, submit handler that we need to write now. So let's do that. And because it is an event listener, it's going to take the event as an argument. Now we can do stuff with it. And the first thing I like to do every time is just to console log submitted. And I know that's not going to immediately work because what do I need to do to post submit handlers? We saw it in the other one. Yeah, Kimberly.
Oh, wait a minute. To post event handlers?
Yeah. To submit event handlers, sorry.
To submit?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've got add event listener. You need to prevent default.
Yeah, that's what I need. So
Okay.
this page won't reload on us.
Okay.
Cool. So we've got a function to play with. Let's look at what happens when we just hit the button. Oop, it reloaded. It reloaded again. Event, prevent, default. Get element by ID, add user form, and add user, prevent default, event. Did I spell it right? prevent, default. What did I do? Submitted. Oh, I didn't reload the page first. That's what happened. Great. Pretty sure that's right. Cool. So now I can actually do stuff with this here. So before we do any fetching or anything, we're definitely going to need to get all the information out of the form. And we did this before too. So I'm just going to kind of run through it real quick. I'm going to get our first name and last name and email. So I'm going to put that in a bunch of constants. And so I've got the event. I need to get the target of the event, and that's the thing that took through the event. That's the thing that broadcasted the event, which is the form. So that's going to be target. So event target is the form. I did not add name. Oh, I did add names. Great. So each one of these inputs has a name. This one's first name, this one's last name, that one's email. So because I'm grabbing that form, I can refer to those by name just by using dot notation. First name, and that will give me the entire input element. I just need to get the value out of that. So that will give me the string. I'm just going to do that for the other two. And let's just go ahead and console log those. And make sure everything is good there. Great. My name is Mark. Well, name's Major. My email is major@gmail.com. Great. Cool. I'm going to submit, and I'm expecting to see Mark Major@gmail.com down there. Hey, all right. So all this stuff we've already done before. This should be, if not comfortable, at least familiar. Do we have any questions about just setting up a form, adding up a handler, adding on a handler, and grabbing the stuff out of the form? Yeah, Kimberly.
Can you pop back to your HTML document for just a second? No, your HTML doc.
Oh, the document, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was missing. Okay, thank you.
What were you missing?
The actual input for the button.
Oh yeah, the input type equals submit.
Yeah.
That's a holdover from earlier days. It should be a button, but it's not. So it's
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm going to do one more thing here that we also did last time. I'm going to target reset. So when we click the button, Mark Major, it resets the form. So it's going to take the stuff out of the form. It's going to do something with it, and it's going to reset the form. Kimberly, do you have another question, or is your hand still up?
Oh, no, sorry.
You're good. You're good. Cool. Anyone else have questions about like this basic setup? Yeah, Zen.
Sorry, I'm just not seeing where your name popped up when you submitted it, or like what it actually did.
In the console.
Oh, I see. I'm like, wait, I'm confused. Okay, great, thanks.
You bet.
It was just at the bottom of the screen, so I didn't notice it.
Cool. Other questions? Anything else you'd like me to explain in this part? Cool. So yeah, and anything you do with forms is going to look like this more or less, depending on what your form looks like. And we can do anything with that information. We can throw in a variable, we can put it on the page, we can console log it, or in our case, we are going to send it to the server. So should I make a new function for that? I'm just going to do it inline, and if I feel like refactoring it, I will. Cool. So right here is where I'm going to do the fetch. And so I'm using fetch, just like with our get down here. The fetch is just communicating with an HTTP server. It's not just for gets. So let's look at what a post looks like and see how it is different. So in this function, I'm going to do a fetch. I'm going to give it our URL. And you know what? Since I'm typing this twice, and who knows if it changes, if we want to go back to dinosaurs or whatever, I'm going to say user API. And we're going to just keep this in a constant. And so now, if you're ever using the same string or the same numbers in a place, I highly recommend pulling it out. And I usually capitalize constants. It's not necessary, like global constants like this, but it's a matter of style. Cool. So I'm making a fetch to my user API. And this way, if the API changes, we only need to change it in one place instead of 2 or 3 or 4 or a million. Cool. So by default, it's going to do a get. We don't want it to do a get this time. We want it to do a post. And so we need to give it some options. And the two things that the fetch takes are a URL and some options. And those options go in an object like this. So in these options, there's a bunch of things you can put in. The most important for us right now is the method. So we can say, hey, this is going to be a post request instead of a get request. And down here, if we like super wanted to make it a get like that, we could. It's get by default, so we don't. So I'm going to need the method. I'm going to also need to give it some headers to let it know that we are sending JSON. Yeah, so I'm going to put the headers here. And the headers are also an object. There's going to be accepts, and that's going to be oh, if I haven't typed this in text application. Oh my god, is that right? Text application JSON jobs. Oh my gosh, what do the headers look like? I've done this a million times. That's completely off my brain. Accepts text. I don't think that's right. Right? That's totally not right.
I think it's content type.
Yeah, there's content type and there's accepts. And they're both the same thing. Text JavaScript, application JavaScript. Ugh, it's been so long since I've done this. Let me Google it.
I think it's application slash JSON.
Application JSON. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go with that for now. Oh, I was thinking of in the head part of yeah. Okay. Great. Everything's better now. So yeah, we've got these. I'm gonna turn these, just gonna be picky for a second. Application JSON. Fantastic. Cool. And we're actually going to be using these headers in multiple places. So just to keep it tidy, I'm going to also put those in a constant up here. Oh, and this lets me show you a little JavaScript object shortcut that I don't know if we talk about a lot. If you have an object in JavaScript and you're assigning the value is going to be a variable or a constant, if the name of that is the same as the key, you can just do this. So that is exactly the same as that. It's just a little bit nicer to read. Removes the need for duplication there. So, and we're going to be using this in multiple places, so that's just a nice thing to do. If you don't want to do it that way, totally fine. Let's see. Yeah, so now we need to, yeah, Kimberly, go ahead.
Just really quick, are the commas really important after your headers in the constant that you? Okay.
At least the first one. The second one is optional, but JavaScript allows you to put an extra comma at the end of a list of in an array or objects. I like to do it because sometimes, especially with arrays, you'll be moving stuff around. So if there's no comma after that at the end here, it's going to be a problem if I move it like that. So I generally just put commas at the end of everything in objects and arrays. Just to, and then, you know, later on, if I want to add something, I don't have to worry about whether there's a comment at the end there. I know there always is. Again, it is optional, so it's a matter of taste. Azani, yeah.
Hey, so in line 5 here, doesn't that except have to be a string?
Great question. The key here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a JavaScript object, the keys are always strings, whether you put them in quotes or not. The only reason we're doing it with quotes here is because it has that dash in it, and then it would be like content minus
I
type.
wouldn't understand. Yeah.
So
Got it.
usually we'll just use bare words for object keys. You can always put them in quotes. That's what it looks like in JSON. JSON always requires you to have them in quotes. JavaScript objects do not.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Did I see another hand up?
That was my exact question.
Okay, great. Cool. Great. So we have our method, we have our headers. We're going to need to tell it what stuff we're sending to, right? And that is the body, the body. So we want the body to look like the thing that we're going to do. The catch is we never want to send an ID. We always want to let the server take care of the ID when we're creating a new thing. We're clearly going to need the ID if we're, I don't know. No, take that back. Never send the ID alone because the server will take care of that. So we want to send the first name, the last name, and the email. And oh, look, I've cleverly named these the same as the keys. So I can just do first name, last name, email. And so this is the body. And again, this is exactly the same as saying this, that, and the other thing. Exactly the same as those. This way just reads a little bit nicer to me. If you want to keep it the other way, totally fine. You will definitely see this in the real world. So at least get used to reading it, but you can write it either way. Megan, yeah.
What if we wanted to send in the body the arguments of that function, like handle add user?
So the arguments of the function are the event always.
Okay.
Can you ask that again? Maybe I'm not understanding what you're.
I was getting ahead and working on the lab, and it's asking for very specific things to send back with that body. And I was hoping this example would kind of like touch on that a little. because I'm struggling, but
Um, is it like a function that is
it
like
takes two strings as its arguments.
and sends those as that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so if we wanted to, we could totally break this out into a function where we do so this is going to be, the function send post user or whatever. And I'll just take the first name, last name, email like that. And so then we can pull those from the arguments of the function there. And use them in the body. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
And
that's
then
one stuff out of the function.
weird. That's what I did, but okay. I'll think on it more. Thank you.
Yeah. And in fact, since since I might want to post different, oops, what happened there? Since I might want to post different things, I might construct the body object up here and then pass it in like that. But again, it depends on use case. For now, I'm going to leave it up in the function just for simplicity. But yeah, maybe we'll break stuff out to show something else.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. But yeah, that's just writing functions. Yeah, there's more practice refactoring. Great, I'm gonna pull this out here. So right now we are doing that fetch. It is making a post, it's sending headers, and that is it. So I'm gonna keep our little server down here. I'm gonna look at our JSON server, which is here. And I'm gonna go ahead and make that post. So not console log anything out, but I should be able to see the server stuff. Bad requests. Is it a bad request? I guess so. Look at that. Unexpected token. Oh, and aha. I forgot one important part. What is JSON at its most simple? What kind of thing is JSON? Yeah, Eileen.
An object?
We might.
Oh no, a string.
It's a string, yeah. JavaScript objects are objects. JavaScript strings or JSON strings are strings. We can see now, and this was the clue. Unexpected token O in JSON, which means that it was probably stringifying that object and sending like the word object, and then like the numbers or whatever. So that's not going to help us at all. So we need to stringify that object. So we can do that with JSON stringify. And then pass that object in there. So now it's going to turn that JavaScript object into a string, and it is going to send that string along in the body. I'm glad I made that mistake so you can see, because you'll definitely make that mistake. Cool. There's that, fantastic. So let's try that again, now that we're doing it the right way, hopefully. Bloop, great. Hey, we got a post and it's a 200 response. That worked. We didn't get anything back, but let's look at our data. Hey, look at that. It gave us an ID even. And all that other stuff is back for some reason. Weird. Okay. Did I not save it or something? I don't know. Anyway, that data is our new thing is in there, which is great. It's not showing up here, but I think if we reload, hey, so when we reload, it's doing that fetch again and re-rendering the stuff. So great, we added it. Now we want it to show up when we submit. But before we do that, what questions do we have about this process here? Yeah, David.
Yeah, so you're always saying that in your fetch function that you're always going to want to put the JSON.stringify within that.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. You could, I mean, if you wanted to, you could do something janky like, okay, I'm gonna make a template literal, and it's gonna look like this, and then I'm gonna put it in manually. You know, you could do something like that. JSON stringify does that for you automatically, so there's no need to turn it into a string by hand. But yeah, you're all the body is always going to be a string for sure. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, other data. No, Azadi.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to, if it's okay, just talk something out to make sure I'm understanding it. So like you have the fetch, the information that you're sending, and with the first name, last name, email, you're basically saying, before you sort of put the stringify, it's like these are the keys that are going that we're aligning with the values that the user is putting in.
Yep.
And then boom, right. So and when you don't stringify that, it would be an object, which I mean so like I guess, and this is kind of like a nuanced question, but why isn't it already a string within, okay, actually no, because it's a variable, it's not text.
Yeah, so it's not in JavaScript. It is, you know, a binary representation in memory of these key value pairs that, you know, they're not a string. A string is stuff that's in quotes.
Yeah,
so we
got it.
go through that and turn it into something that looks like what we want.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you bet. Other questions? Yeah, Kimberly.
Just really quick, I'm sorry, I need to back up for just a second. User API, is that the user's data from the data.json file?
Say that again.
Yes, it is. Okay. Nope, you just answered my question by scrolling up. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the URL of the JSON server. Yeah. Cool. Anything else? Right. Sweet. So let's deal with our promise a little bit, because this is still a fetch. It's still doing a promise. Yeah, I'm actually gonna move this up here just to keep it tidy. So we're still sending a promise or creating a promise and getting stuff back. It seems to have done the thing that we want to do, but it doesn't show the data on the page. So we want to do a couple things. We want to make sure that it went through, because maybe the server's down, or maybe we sent the wrong data, or any number of things. So we want to make sure that that request went in properly. So let's do some thens on this. Let's do it here. So first I'm going to do my little JSON dance here. Turn that into JSON. And then I'm going to handle the response here. So I'm going to get what do I want to call it? I'm just going to call it JSON here, even though it's not technically. This is our data. It's our object. I'm going to console log it out first, just to make sure, just to see what we're getting back. So I'm going to console log whatever data it is sending back after we do that post. So here's our server there. Let's put in our name again and hit that. And hey, look, it is console logging back here the stuff that we just sent plus the ID, which will become important at some point. So cool. So what we learn from this is when we do a post to a server and it is successful, it will send back the object that it created, so we can verify, oh look, everything that we sent is there, we've got an ID, it went great. If it didn't, we can put a catch on here, and catch we didn't really play with before, but catch is if something went wrong, it'll send an error back. And I'm just gonna console. I'm going to console error that out. And so that'll give us an error on the console. So if we, if we forgot to stringify, say, hey, we sent an error back, and got some more data. This is not valid JSON. Valid. So this lets us know if there's a problem getting it back. For sure, let us know. And again, we can handle that and put an error on the screen or do whatever we like here. But if it goes right, we're getting this data back. So let me pull that data out of the JSON here. In fact, let me pull a bunch of it out just so we have a couple. Great. So now we've only got those two in theory. We need to restart the server. There we go. Great. So we've got our 2 users there. So the behavior I'd like to see. Yeah, sneeze is coming. Excuse me for a second. The behavior I'd like to see is when I put a name here and it gets added to the database, I would like to also add it to the list. So cool. And we've actually saved ourselves a lot of time here by doing it this way. We could, of course, since we're getting this data back, and hey, we have a render user. We can go ahead and send that user to render user and just put it on the page. So if I do mark major there, it didn't do it. Why not?
Did you refresh?
I didn't catch. If there's an error, it'll put the user on the page there. Render user. Great. So if I put something on the page here, it'll put it on the page, but our data will not reflect that. So it's not going to have some observations on there. And so if we're in our web application, if we're still working with this data, that's not going to be in sync. So we definitely want that to be in sync. So we're going to just do what we did when we got the data in the first place. We're going to update our users here. So I'm going to say here's our object. Or I'm going to call it users. New user. It's a new user. I'm going to say users push. New user. Now I'm going to render users. And so now when we get the new object that was created back, we're going to put it into our data structure, into our model, and we are going to render the whole thing out. And because we have this clearing out, it's not going to render the whole list twice, right? So if we do, hey, it went directly on there, and our users are updated to, this reflects our updated users array. Cool, and that's pretty much how you are going to do a post and create a new thing. And if you want to display on the page, this is how you do that. Yeah, what questions do we have about this new stuff? Any part of it? Yeah, Azani.
Okay, my question is, and so I might have missed it. So you did the example where the stuff posted to the page, but it didn't change in the actual like server. And what you did to fix that was the push here. Is that right?
Yeah, so it was updated on the server, but it wasn't updated in our local data on the page.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, so we always want to have the data that we're working with we want the page to reflect that all the time. We don't want to update the page without updating our data first.
Got it.
Yeah. And you know, look at this. Since we're doing this twice, I wonder, well, no, I won't talk about that now. Well, we can talk about that later. There's some fun ways to refactor this, but I don't want to distract from the core stuff. We can talk about that later on. Hannah, yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, I don't know, it's up to you, but is it okay if we can do without using empty array,
If you can do,
like for the line 8?
Mhm.
Let's say if you do on the code talent, it's okay not to use like not to do that way, as
Uh,
long as we can pass the code talent. Because I'm just thinking if I don't do the empty the array, it's fine, right?
mhm. So are you asking if it's okay just to put the stuff on the page without storing it here?
Yeah, because I'm just thinking because when I'm doing like in the lab, I do without using the empty the array, and
Mhm.
it still work. So it's okay not to use it, right?
So it depends on what you want to do, right? So in our case, if we are only just putting stuff on the page, we could ignore this. We could just directly put it on the page here. We could directly put it on the page here, and we could just put a new user on the page, and not store the data at all. This, and if that's the only thing we want it to do, that will totally work. But we're going to be developing web applications. So if we, wanted to edit one of these things in the lists, if we wanted to delete it, if there was more information associated with it, so like if we wanted to click one of these and have the email show up somewhere else, we would need to store that data somewhere. And so when you're building a real web application, which is what we're going to be doing going forward, you definitely need to keep a hold of that data somewhere. So it is for this very simple specific purpose, you don't have to, but going beyond this point, it is definitely in your best interest to do that. Does that answer what you're asking?
Yeah, because I'm just wondering for the code talent, like
Yeah, and it'll definitely doing it this way make the code challenge easier, for sure. Yeah, and in fact, let me show a little bit about what. Let me demonstrate a little bit, I think, instead of just talking on my ass. I'm going to create a new div. I'm going to put it down here. I'll put it out on top. And I'll just make it, and this is a contrived example. I will call it, it's going to be an H2, and it's going to be current user email. And then I'll have a little paragraph here, and I'll give that paragraph an ID. Call it email display, something like that. And there's nothing in it. So that's what that looks like on the page. And I'll put
got it.
none.
Yep.
Great. So that's ugly, but we'll deal with it. Great. Just to make things, I'm just gonna move this down here so we can see more clearly. Great. I can put HR here.
Okay.
Cool.
So that make it different. Okay.
So
Yeah.
the behavior I'd like to do is when I click one of these, I would like it to show the email for that user. So let's see what that would take. It would definitely be in render user here. Because we're getting the full user object, we have access to all the information. And so first I'm going to write myself a little helper function that just puts the email here. I'll say, I call it display email, display user email. It's going to take user. And first I'm going to get that div. I'm going to set the inner text of it to the user email. And that's literally all it does. And so if I want to use that function, I'm going to do a user with the email of test at example. And so when I run that, I expect test at whatever to show up here. It does not. Inner text, email display. Email display. Did I not get it? Inner text.
Yeah.
It's not a function. Every time I do this. There we go. There we go. So that's the function that's going to set that. Great. So I would like to use that function when we click a thing to set it to the email of the current user. And hey, I've got this list item here. So I'm going to add a click handler to my list item. How about that? And I'm just going to say, so it's going to, whatever function I put here, it's going to call and send the event. I don't want it to get the event. I want it to get the user. So I'm going to write a little inline function here. It's going to take the event, but I'm not going to use the event. I'm going to say call display user by email. I'm going to pass it the current user. So when I click on that, it's going to run this function, and it's going to call this function. It's going to give it the user that was clicked on, and it's going to show that user's email. So hopefully, if I did this right, hey, look at that. I can click on these and show the emails. Fantastic. So here's the problem if I just add that user. So if I want to, here when I post, instead of putting it in the array, if I want to render user with our new user, cool. So I'm going to put in Hannah, put in some email, and boom, that went on there. So I can click on everyone else's email, but you don't have one. You do. Oh no, what happened? I'm a total liar. Look at that. Wow, how did that work? Oh, right, because it is attaching the email. Super lying there. Yeah, so it's not. Oh yeah, I was super lying there. If we wanted to remove it, that would be the thing, because we are still attaching the data there because we are sending that full object. Don't believe me all the time. If we want to delete that item from the array, it's not in the array, so it's there. If we just want to display it there, it'll do. So yeah, you know what? For the code challenge, if there's something like this, you can probably get away with just displaying stuff. That's a great example. Awesome. I just played myself. Cool. I still recommend doing it the other way because in a larger application, it's going to be more useful. And in fact, as we go to phase 2, that's kind of how React works by default. And maybe that's why I'm kind of bringing that prejudice back in. But yeah, I guess it'll work both ways. Again, the main difference is that if we want to look at our users in the code for some reason, if we want to use that list in another part of the application, that list is not going to be up to date here. But yeah, super lied there. Fantastic. Yeah, so short version, yeah, if it works, it works.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for asking. That was great. Thanks for making me do that. Cool. Question in chat seems users equals empty is temporary storage while server-side storage is for long-term. Yeah. So basically that array only exists as long as this page exists. When this page goes away, that array goes away. If we wanted to store it long-term, sending it to a server is the way to do it, because then it's going to be stored in our data JSON. And in fact, when we reload the page, it's going to load it into that array. And when we leave the page, that array goes away until we fill it again from the data source. There is a middle solution there, which is kind of a medium-term thing that we don't really go into. But basically, you can store information either in cookies or in a local storage. At local storage is usually the way that I like to do stuff, where basically there's an object that lives in your browser that can store stuff per page. And so that's kind of like medium-term storage. It'll go away if they, clear their cache or whatever, but it will persist when they reload the page. But yeah, again, short version is this array only exists as long as the page exists. So yeah, that is short-term storage. Great questions. I love it. What other questions do we have? Cool. Yeah, sweet. So let's quickly look at the other ones. They're going to behave mostly the same. I mean, that's not true at all. They're going to be implemented mostly the same as this because of the post stuff. But we're just going to have to do different things to make it go. So the most important thing is, well, let me show you as we're coding. So I'd like to add some delete buttons to this, I think. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to add a delete button at the end here. And that delete button is just going to have a little X, I think. Is that true? Yeah, that'll be fun. So I'm going to make a new button on each item here. We're going to create a button. Nope. Button. I'm going to set the excuse me. I'm going to set the value of the button to delete so I can have some text on there. So I'm just going to get a little X. I'm going to append it to the list item. Great. And so hopefully that will add text. There we go. Cool. So there's our little buttons. They've got X's in them. I don't need to put the parentheses around it. There. Great. Aesthetics. Graphic design is my passion. So cool. These buttons don't do anything yet. But they do. Oh, they do when I click on them. I'm going to get rid of this current email just so I have to talk about bubbling for a minute. Great. So right now these buttons don't do anything. And I guess I can get rid of that current email. Sweet. So the behavior that I want is that when I click this button, that user is removed both from the database and from the page. So let's take care of the database part first. So deletes are easier than patches. That's why we're doing them first. So I'm going to make a new function here. And it is going to be handle delete user. And I'm not going to give it an event just yet, I don't think. Oh, exactly, yeah. In fact, I'm going to take user, and I'm going to say deleting user.id. So what I would like to do is make this a function first. What I would like to do is attach this function to that delete button. And the way I can do that is listen for click on it. Go to the delete button. Click. And I want that to, so I want to pass it the user, kind of like I did with the email one. So I'm going to catch the event there. I'm going to ignore it. I'm just going to call handle delete user. I'm going to pass the user in. So again, this is a little arrow function I'm passing in as the event handler. So I can ignore the event and just call that function with the current user attached to this. And let's see what that looks like. Deleting 1, deleting 3, deleting 6. Great. So when I click that button, it's calling that function and give me the user, so I can grab the ID of that user off, which is important for the delete. So I'm going to need to do a fetch here. So let's do our fetch. And I'm going to pop this open just so you can see the similarities. Maybe if we can get them both on screen. Cool. So we're going to do our fetch. And we are going to need to use the user API, but deletes and patches are different because we need to give it the ID in the URL. So I'm going to use a template literal for that. I'm going to say use our user API and then put a slash and then use our user ID. So this string is going to look like, you know, HTTP, whatever, 3000, 3004. And that's going to be a delete. How do we make it a delete? Well, we need to give it one of those options there. So we're going to tell it the method. And it's going to be delete. We're going to give it some headers, and we already took care of that. And that's it. It doesn't need anything else. It just knows that we need to do a delete and that we are deleting at this user ID. You might be tempted, and I'm often tempted, to send a body along that has the ID in it. That's not going to do anything. About half the time I do this exercise, that's the first way I do it. And I'm like, no, that's wrong. It's definitely put the URL / the ID and then give it a method of delete. Cool. So let's see what happens when we don't catch anything from that. So let's get rid of this console log. Clicked it, nothing happened. We didn't console log anything, but if we reload the page, it is gone. And as a matter of fact, it is deleted from our database. So the delete worked. So I'd like to get a catch from that. Then from that, delete. I don't think delete actually returns anything. I might be lying. We can find out though. Do some science. So if something does come back, we'll console log it. And we'll delete output actions. Yeah, cool. So it sends back an empty array. It's going to do that all the time. So I don't really care about the content of it. So I'm just going to, I want to remove that thing from the page. So there's a couple of ways we can do that again, right? I think Task Lister does this, or maybe some of the exercises. I think what it does is in the event listener here, I think what it does is it removes it like goes to the parent and removes the parent from the HTML. That's kind of gross because if we look at let's look at the HTML in this here. We'll inspect it. Cool. There's our body. There's our UL. And there's our stuff. So what it looks like, it's an LI with a button with an X in it. And so if we attached something to the button that was like, this target parent remove, it would go up in the HTML, look at the parent and delete that and flush itself down the drain. That might work here. But programmers are not the only people working on things. Designers also work on stuff. And if they changed the HTML to be like, oh, instead of this being, this li with a button, I want to make this whole thing, this whole thing's going to be a div or a paragraph or something else. And we're going to add some HTML to this li to make it look nicer. And we're going to move the button to the front and all that jazz. And so then when you're trying to manipulate the HTML by going up to the parent, it might remove the button, it might remove something else important, it might leave things behind. So you often can't count on the HTML to look a certain way, which is why doing stuff like removing parent and then removing self or whatever will work, but will often give you trouble. So instead of doing that, I'd like to do it the data way, where we remove stuff from the data and re-render, which means we need to remove that thing from the array. So the data array looks like this, basically. It's an array with a bunch of objects, and they have IDs and numbers. It's JavaScript, so there's a bunch of different ways we can do it. We could we could loop through it, find the index of the one that had that ID, and then do a splice or something. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. The way I prefer to do it is by using a filter. So we would be using, let's do this. We're getting back something. We don't care what it is. So I'm just going to do that. But we do have the user here. So what I would like to do is replace the users array with that same array minus the thing that we want to get rid of. I'm going to use a filter for that. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because you're going to see it this way in phase 2. And I think preparing for that is going to help you out in the long term. If you have another way of doing it that works, totally sweet, totally good. But I'm going to say users equals users. So setting the array, I'm going to use the filter function, and you may not have used this a whole lot yet, but you will in the near future. Filter is a higher order function on arrays that returns a copy of the array where the items in the array match a certain function. A certain function will return true for those. So what we need to do here is write a little function that returns true for things that we want in the array. What is that going to look like? It's going to look like, I'm not using E for element. I'll use U for user. So this is a little arrow function. And so I want this to return true if I want it in the array, which means I want it to return true if the user ID is not the user ID that I deleted. So I'm going to say user ID is not equal to ID. And then I'm going to render the users. So again, this is looking at each item in the array. And if the item does not equal the user ID of the item we're deleting, it's going to keep it in the array, and then it's going to re-render it. Azani, yeah.
Hey, question is, do you not have to put the $sign and brackets around the user ID that's in the middle there on line 38?
I mean, we could do that if we wanted to, but these are equivalent.
Oh no, so I mean like how I forget interpolate.
Mhm.
I'm trying to like how it is on line 34.
Here. So here's where we're building this URL. Maybe I'm not.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry, does anybody else get what I'm trying to ask, or am I explaining it wrong?
Are you asking about the curly braces?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
why
check.
the Yeah, why the user ID on line 38 doesn't have to have that same.
Yeah.
He's using an arrow function.
Yeah, so up here I'm building a string. So I'm using these this literal template to do it, which means that I'm gonna make a string that has the value of this, the slash, and then the value of this in it. And the way we do that is by putting the $ and curlies around it. Out here, we're just looking at the values. We're not turning it into a string at all. Does that make a little bit more sense?
In an arrow function, it's not required to have the curly braces if you can put it all on a single line.
Oh yeah, is that what you're asking, Azani?
No, I guess what I'm asking centers on the $. Like, it doesn't have to be in that case, like the specific user ID.
Yeah, so it
You
is the
just
specific
put-
user ID. We're just not turning it into a string. The
Got it.
this $ with the
Yes.
that's
Okay.
only for inserting a
That's
value.
only for strings.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it. Okay, sorry.
Oh, no,
Thank you.
and again, let's check if I'm lying. It might be Kimberly, do you have another question? Or is that the same? All right, awesome. Cool, let's go to the console. Let's reload. Let's check out users. Users has 4 things in it. Great. I'm gonna delete this one here. I'm gonna look at users again. Awesome. It did what we wanted. Cool. This is a little bit advanced, I guess. But it's definitely something to practice and get used to. There are other ways of doing this, of course. Let me show you another way. And let me show you a way that is equivalent that kind of matches a pattern for this, right? So I'm going to say, const new user array. I'm going to make an empty array. And then I'm going to loop through the current users array with for each, we'll say. So I'll say users for each. And then for each user in that array, I'm going to say, I'll say if the user ID does not equal the, or I can't use user there. I need to use you. So because I'm using user up here. So for each thing in this array, for each user in the array, if that ID does not equal the user IDs up here, then I'm going to push it onto the new users array. And then when that's all done, I'm going to say users equals the new user array. User array. And then render users. So this for loop does exactly the same thing as this filter here. It's creating a new array, which is what filter does. It's going through each thing in that array and saying if the thing's ID doesn't equal the deleted user's ID, then push it on the new array. And that's what we're doing here in the filter. And then we're just setting users to that new array, which is what we're doing here. So these two things do exactly the same thing. Neither of them is especially pretty or easy to read. But yeah, and you could use a for loop there as well for I equals 0 and so on. There's many different ways to do it. I tend to do it this way because it's a little bit neater, but if this way makes more sense to you, great. If you have another way that works for you, great. If you want to figure out how to do it with like a splice or something, totally great. This could be using X in algebraic notation to help me track this community. Could you talk more about that, Azani?
Yeah, I mean, just to say, like, you know how you're like, I'll use you because this is supposed to
Mhm.
be a user, and it's sort of like naming things based on what they are. I know just we've had some like confusion about that. I was just saying it's like I almost feel like that trips me up more than having it just be something that actually doesn't mean what it's trying to describe per se. But I know you were saying, that's sort of the convention that helps people, like maybe somebody else has to read the code or things like that.
Yeah, and so like if you come back to this code later on, and you've added a bunch of code here, and you're just kind of looking at this. If this is X, not sure exactly what that might be, but if this is you or list user or something like that, that's going to let me see at a glance like, oh, I know what that is. There's no reason you couldn't use X or Y or Z or whatever. But yeah, using something that describes the thing it is going to definitely help you in the long run for sure. And they're syntactically equivalent to if you said that, right? Is that what you would prefer to see?
I mean, it's not exactly, but yeah, no, we're on the same page though.
Okay, cool, yeah. Yeah, and if you wind up having 5 or 6 variables, it's gonna be you're gonna wind up with a U eventually anyway. Hannah, yeah.
Like you said, this is like one way. It can also work when you like remove or inner HTML with the list that you create, right? Like let's say the list that you create to add I mean from the vendor whatever. I mean from the video that I was watching, it said you can also do like let's say list that you create that remove, or you can do a list inner HTML. So this doesn't have to be one way, it can be like different ways. Like perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you want to if you want to somehow remove this from the list, so whether that's with a there's a bunch of different ways to, to change an array around. But if you want to do that a different way with a splice or removing it somehow, that's totally valid. Whatever gets it out of the array and makes sense to you is the right way to do it for sure. But this is my preferred way, and again, definitely something you will see both in the wild and when we get to React. You're going to see a lot more stuff that looks like this. So it's good practice for sure. Cool. Other questions about the deletes? Right. Let's roll through some patches. Let's do that. How do I want to set this up? Let's go back to this. So if I want to edit a user, I need some way to get that information and edit it, right? And we have a form here. I'm going to add a new button to the form. And tell me if this is too much. I feel like it'll be okay. I'm going to add a button here. The ID is going to be edit button. And it's going to say edit user. Great. So now I'm going to set it up so that when we click on the user itself, it's going to take the information from these guys and it's going to put it in here. I'm going to do one thing real quick that's been bugging me. Great. So now, hey, now I know these are clickable. Look at that. Sometimes CSS is good. Sweet. So I've got this form over here. The first thing I would like to do is I would like to, when I click on this, I would like the information from the user to populate this form. So let's use that local click handler we did there. Instead of display user email, I'm going to say display user info. And I'm just going to capitalize this here. So I'm just going to delete that there. Great. So that function needs to grab the form, and then I need to set the values of things in that form. So let's do that. New user form, and I'm just going to call it user form now, which means I need to change that. Yep, great. So I'm going to grab that user form in my function. Yes, display user. So const user form equals that. Cool. And so since I have the user info for that user, let me console log the user, make sure that part works. So if I click a user, I expect to see that down there. Great, great, great. So now I want to put this information up here. So I'm going to say, since I can get the form here, I'm going to say user form, and I'm just going to set the values of the first, last, and email. First name. And email. Cool. So when I click that user, I'm going to grab the user form, and since I have the user information in the function here, I'm going to just set those things to the things. Let's see if that works. Hey, surprising. Great. Cool, cool, cool. Put in a different email for me. Weird. Awesome. Yeah, Megan.
Do you mind going back to your code? Where are you getting the values for when you say like store user first name and user form first name value? First name, is that in your HTML?
Yeah, so here in the HTML, each of the inputs has a name. So this
Okay.
name, last name, and email. Yeah,
Okay.
that lets us refer to them like this when we get the elements.
Okay, cool. Just checking. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Other questions about this little quick setup? I know I did that super fast. Cool. What I would like to do then is now use this form to edit the user with a patch. Cool. Did I hook up that button to anything yet? I don't think I did. So this is the edit button. I'm going to grab that up here. I'm going to add an event listener to it. Get the element ID first. This is going to be a click. And yeah, so I'm going to say handle edit user. And this is going to take a little bit of contortion, I think, because we're not passing the user directly into this because we can't really. But what we can do right, so it's just calling that function by itself. We don't have the user being passed in, and we don't have an event really. But we do have is the information in the form. And for simplicity's sake, we're just going to grab it out of the form. And so we're kind of doing the opposite of what we're doing here. I'm just going to grab this raw code to play with. So we're getting the form, and instead of setting the form values to variables that we're passing in, we're going to create variables out of the stuff in the form, kind of like what we did in our add user. Oh, in fact, let me just do that. Oh, it's gonna be event target. So we're kind of doing the same thing here, but since we don't have an event to work with, we just need to grab it out of the form. So const first name equals that. Boop. Cool. So we're grabbing that. I'm going to, yeah, let's just console log those out so we can see, make sure we're getting the right thing. And let's see what it looks like. So we're going to click Celestine there, and we're going to hit edit user. I expect to see stuff in the console. There it is. Great. I do it. Oh, did it add the user in? It did. Weird. Why did it add a user for me? What did I do wrong? It's doing a post every time. Wow. Why is it doing that? That's interesting. Look at that. Fascinating. What did I do wrong? Neat. Wow. Let me see. What did I do here? Just cruising along. Edit button click is handle edit user. Handle edit user is just doing this. But handle add user is doing that. Let me put some trace statements in here to see what's doing. Console log in add user. Console log here and add edit user. Cool. So now it should console log when I go into those things. I'm gonna delete that. Great. I'll put myself in there and I hit edit user. What? Why is it calling both of those? That's amazing. Wild. Why would it do that? Wow. Let's see. So let's take the event handler off and see if it does the same thing. So curious. So there's no event listener on this button right now. And it's adding a user when I click that.
What's on your HTML?
Yeah. Let's see. So here's the edit button. It's got an ID of edit button. Here's the submit. I wonder if it's. So I'm going to test something. I don't think this is it. I'm just going to click on the form somewhere. Anywhere but that. Great. Okay. So it's not even if I click like in here. Okay. So that's not it. I'm wondering if. I'm going to wrap these in divs just to see what happens. So they'll be on separate lines. If I hit edit user, it shouldn't do anything, and yet it does. Wild. What is it doing? I don't have a handler on that. Aha, I know what it is. Hannah, do you know what it is?
No, I'm just wondering whether because the form it consider both input as submit button.
Yeah, I'm curious because I thought it might be if I didn't close this, maybe it thought that that was part of the button, but it's not.
Well, yeah, it is like if you use the input where it says submit, it is submit. And then if you do the button, it is considered as submit to
Yeah,
I don't know whether the form cannot recognize or can recognize that both of them are the submit, meaning they do the same thing.
it should yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. Megan, did you have an idea?
No, but I have no idea. But I was actually more curious, your console logging. I know we read a little bit about debugging,
Mhm.
but I've tried that in the past with like doing console log like around a function, and it always threw me an error. So like you're console logging something in a function
Yep.
to why to troubleshoot if that's being run or
Yeah,
something.
just to say, if you're in this function, let's log it to see that we are in that function.
Okay, and that's why it's printing handle edit user.
Yep.
Okay, and then we're just trying to figure out why it's doing that.
Yeah, so why it's actually running the other one. Yeah, and
Oh, it's running in handle user.
yeah, so it's doing handle add user here.
Oh, handle add user. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Yeah. So the conjecture I had that I was testing was is handle edit user somehow doing the submit, or is it somehow calling handle add user in addition to? And it was this one. And even if I take the event listener off of that button, it still runs the handle add user. I feel like I'm doing something simple here wrong. And I bet if I take this off, and add my click handler back on, I bet that will, oh my gosh, it does both, even though I take the submit button off. What is happening? And yeah,
Could it be that the like creation one is using the ID new user form and the button is under that, so it's getting caught within that call?
can you say that again? Maybe I'm not understanding.
So on the HTML, the form ID is the new user or the user form, but the button is within that form.
Yeah.
Could it be that when you're calling the form with the handle, whatever, I can't remember, the handle add user, it's because the button is under that?
Yeah, so it shouldn't do anything with the form unless it's a submit button. If it's just a regular button, you should be able to put buttons in forms all day to do different things. That's really curious. I wonder. So I'm going to put the submit button back. I'm going to try taking this handler off. And this is the submit handler for the form. I'm betting that's going to take it off. Yeah, so that doesn't, but it's still submitting. It's still submitting. Why is it submitting when I hit edit user? It's so weird. Interesting. Wow. Why? Okay, let me get element by ID, edit button, and that is the edit button there. And it's just a plain button. I'm adding the event listener. It's a click listener to handle edit user. But that doesn't matter. What's happening is the submit function. It's throwing a submit when I click that button. I have no idea why it would do that. I don't think I've ever seen that behavior before. Huh. Well,
On the index, why are your buttons different? So you have the input type, and then on the button ID for the edit, you don't have anything.
yeah, so this is just a plain old button. And this is actually an input field that says to submit the form when you hit it. So they're two different kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah, and even if I take this button out and take the listener off, this is still submitting for some reason. And it's just a plain old button. I don't understand. Well, I'm going to take the easy way out. I'm going to put it outside the form. So now it should not. Okay, so now it's only doing edit. That is wild. I don't understand the behavior it was just doing, but we're going to work around it by just not putting it inside the form. I'm definitely going to investigate why that was happening, because that should not happen that way. That's super weird. Yeah, Hannah, did you have an idea?
Okay, okay. I'm gonna assume, like for the form, when you do the add event listener, you do submit, right? You tell like the submit for event, and like for the line one,
Uh-huh.
it gets submit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the form, it has to be submit. So anything you click it, you show anything or display and the browser. So again to assume for the button and the input, because in the input it said for the HTML submit, and then the form is that, I mean for the form is that submit. The, I mean, let's say if you do, I don't know, I mean for the button it click,
Mhm.
but I don't think the form can recognize that the button had its own
Yeah,
event,
it
but it could click.
shouldn't matter because you should be able to you can put a click handler on anything, whether it's a button or not. So I could put
Yeah,
it. I could put a click-
yeah. I think the form cannot really like recognize that it had its own event.
but it
The
shouldn't.
yeah.
I think that's what it was doing. I
Um,
don't understand why it's doing that. And in fact, when I took the submit handler off, it was still doing a submit when I clicked on that button. I'm really curious why that was doing it. I don't think I've never seen that behavior before. And so I feel like I'm doing something very simple wrong, but I'm gonna work around it.
you know,
Um, yeah, so right now, edit user is just doing edit user, not running a handle user. We took it out of the form. Whatever was going on with that, I'm not gonna mess with that devil stuff. So cool. Let's reload there. Why is our data not what's happening? Oh my god, we got demons in here. What's going on? Locals. Okay, this is making a request for users. This is our data. Let me restart the JSON server again. Okay. So we're back to where we want to be. Have that little terrifying detour. Edit user is in handle edit user, and it should be, if we put stuff in the form, showing the stuff in the form. Okay, cool. This is where we want to be. Terrifying. Could it be the edit button is under the user form? It is now. Because I moved it here, so it would be outside of the form. But yeah, it's gremlins. I'll figure it out. So cool. So what we want to do now is, now that we have edit user hooked up and working properly, and we have the stuff there, now we want to do our posts. And post is going to look a lot like our delete user. In fact, we're going to do the same. These. We're going to do the same kind of fetch. We're going to do a fetch to that that URL with the ID, so we know which item that we're editing. So when we get, we don't have a user ID. We don't have a user ID. How do we tell it which user ID to have? You know what? I'm going to do this way. In fact, I think this is probably a better way to do it all around. I'm going to do this. We are going to set the form. So on the click, we are still going to set the values in the form. We're going to do one extra step though. I'm just going to have another variable called current user, and that's going to have all the user data. And we're going to do that by saying current user equals user. Great. So now if we click one of these, we should be able to go look current user, and that is going to be that object. Great. And it has the ID right there. So now instead of, and I'm kind of opposed to pulling data off of the HTML because the HTML can change arbitrarily. So I like using data for data. So now we actually have that data. We have the current user. And in fact, that current user is an object, but we are going to need to use the, oh, I'm just going back and forth on this. It's been, yeah, maybe I need some more coffee. Let me back up to what I was in. I am going to need to use the stuff out of the form because that's what people are typing in. Okay, cool. So we are going to have to do that anyway, but I do need to get the current user. Let's do this instead. Let's do, let me put that back. I'm going to say that let current user ID, because all the information I need is going to be in the form. Yeah, let's do it that way. Cool. So all I need is the ID there. So we're just saving that somewhere. I'm going to current user ID that there. Great. And now I'm going to do my fetch. It's going to be a patch. We need to include our headers. And now I need to send a body. And the body is going to be made out of the stuff that we are changing. So the body is going to be stringified first. And we're going to create an object with our first name, last name, email. And that should do it. Great.
There's a stray character after JSON.
JSON, there it is. Cool. So we're only changing the database now. We're not going to update the browser yet. So let's edit Celestian. I think Celeste without the YN. Celeste like that. And she got a new job at Apple. And so let's edit that user and see what happens. Get nothing on the page, which is what we wanted. If we look at the users again, there is the new information. So our patch worked. We can look at our server here. That should have the patch for us. There it is. And now all we need to do is the same kind of thing that we did with our delete. Assuming we get the data back, we'll do our JSON dance. And then we will take that object. And now we need to update the, so we're going to do another little piece of magic here. We're going to update the user array with that new information. And I'm going to do that with a map. There are many other ways to do it. In fact, let's do it a different way. Let's use, what do we want to use? Let's just update the object. So cool, object. I'm gonna use find. So users find is another function you can use. And what this is gonna do, it's gonna give you the first thing in the array that the function that you pass to it returns true for. So I want to find the first thing in the users where the user ID equals the object ID, the new user ID. Call it updated user. Cool. So that should get me the user object with that ID. And what do I want to do? Well, I want to update each of the fields. There could be a billion fields though. Is find the right way to do this? I don't know. Yeah, I'll do it this way and I'll show you another way to do it as well. So I'm just going to say the user in question, this user, and I'll just update these manually for now. Equals updated user first name. This is not a great way to do it, I don't feel like, but it is a way to do it. And then we're going to re-render the users. Cool. Let's see if that does what I want. I'm gonna update myself. I'm gonna get myself a job at Google. That is not a function. Oh, did I put it on Stringify? I did. Let's see, body Stringify that. Yep, cool. I want to put another. That's options, great. And then that is the fetch, great. Oh boy, I'm missing these here. That right? Balancing parentheses so hard. Cool. That's in the Stringify. That's in the object. That's in the fetch. Great. I think that's what I want. Let's try that again. Edit user. Great. And there it is. Let me edit my name. What's my new name? I don't know. Jasper. Edit it. And that updated me. Yes. And that should be updated in the database as well. There we go. Easy peasy. I don't think this is a great way to do this because there could be 20 fields on it. And we might not know what those fields are. So we wouldn't want to do that by hand. The way I would do it would be to use a map, which is going to look like similar to our delete one. So I would say users equals users map. And then I'd say, gonna take, what are we gonna do? We're going to, so map, replace it. Map takes an array and returns a new array with each element altered in some way, maybe. So I'm gonna say, for each user, if the user ID matches the updated user's ID, then I want to return the updated user. Otherwise, return user. That's a little bit of magic. I'm just saying, basically replace the new array with the same array unless this is the ID of the updated user. It is a way to do it. And it may or may not work. I think it's gonna work. Let's give Hannah a real name. How about that? Cool. Let's edit that user. There we go. It works. Great, and that's that. I don't expect you to understand this immediately or soon. This is one way to do this. I would say play around with different ways of updating an array if you want to do it the data way. Or if you just want to skip the data way and just do it directly in the HTML. If it works, it works. That's fine. Yeah, but the important part is this is how you do that. That's the important part we're looking at. That's how you do the fetch. What comes after is what comes after. Great. That is so much stuff. That's an awful lot of stuff for one day. Whirlwind tour. Absolutely not expected to remember any or all of this 100%. Yeah, the post one I think is the most important one to kind of think about. The rest kind of filter in. We got like 15 minutes left. What questions do we have? Or if our brains are just broken, we don't need questions. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah, Hannah.
Can I see the HTML?
Which one again?
The HTML.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'm the creator. I'm just wondering if it's going to work for the button, for the line 30. Maybe, I was just Googling, maybe it says you need to take the type of the button.
Type on the button. Buttons don't really have types.
No, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I was just googling it. It's just you need to type we call code.
Oh, maybe if we,
The
are you saying if we do maybe make it
let me just stay here. Yeah, and then maybe if you move it to the form, let's see if it can to work. Oh yeah,
like that? I think for the UI, I would like to have it after. I don't think I mean, it shouldn't matter either way. But let's see if it does. Oh, I need to make the value that. And need to make that an input. I need to there. Great. That should do what we want. Cool. Let's do. Cool. It did it add one? It did not. That works. Look at that. You did it. I'm still curious why a regular button doesn't
I
work.
mean, it is like you in the DS. I mean, in the JavaScript file, did you comment out? No, we did.
Yeah. That's curious because input type
Whatever.
button should behave exactly
Yeah.
the same. I'm really freaked out that it's not.
Okay.
That's really, but yeah, we got it. Great. Good job. You fixed it. Awesome. Yeah, I'm still gonna do more research on why that other way doesn't happen because I've never seen it happen before. Awesome,
Can
cool.
you say that one more time? What you did?
Yeah, so basically I changed it from button whatever to this. Not whatever. Edit either. Keep doing that. So yeah, so instead of this, I just made it an input type. But those should be exactly equivalent. And I'm really curious why they are not. And you know what? Just for kicks, let's make sure that it's still not working in the right way. Yep, it still doesn't. I don't know why. That's so weird. Huh. Anyway, we got it to work. That's all that counts. Awesome. Other questions? It's leaf blower time. Great. Cool. I'm gonna post this video up so y'all can refer to it at your leisure. I'll make a little repo for this code too, so you can take a look at it as well. Yeah, and we will take a look at Task Lister in just a little bit. Whew, thanks for hanging out through that. That is, oh, look at that. We got Stack Overflow. Yeah. Cool. I'll look at that. In the meantime, have a good lunch, and I'll see y'all soon. Thanks for hanging out.